Well, hello, Denzians of the interweb. You have come once again to hear me ramble pretty much incoherently about a film, for some reason. I just got back from seeing X-Men Apocalypse, which, going into the film, I wasn't as excited to see this movie as I was Captain America. However, I think that was less the film's fault and just more the craziness that my past week has been. Uh, I know I said I was going to do a bunch of TV reviews because a bunch of series were wrapping up this week, and I never got around to them because I was just tired from work that I just kind of got home, watched those, and this was like, I'm going to sleep. And on top of that, I saw The Nice Guys. I recorded a review of that. It's on my computer. I just was so beat, I just didn't feel like going into the simple movie maker and spending 5 minutes to actually slap it together. I'm hoping I'll get this one uploaded. But I saw. So I wasn't getting overhyped for this film or anything. But like I said, that was more me and what's going on in my own personal life. Not that I'm having any crazy dramas. It's just work has been insanely busy this week. It's going to be insanely busy next week, even though it's a 4-day. I'm glad I've got a 3-day weekend coming up, but at the same time, I'm looking like I'm gonna have to spend some time this weekend writing up some reports, just so I will have slightly less of a hectic week the following. It's like next 2 weeks are crazy, but hopefully after that, everything should settle down. Not that I'm complaining about my job. I have a pretty nice job, but it's a feast or famine position where you either kind of have nothing to do and you kind of feel like, oh, I can't believe I get paid for this. And then you get into the feast part, which we like to say ironically, where you're just completely over and date with all this crap happening at once. And you're like, why am I in this job? So, that's enough about that little digression. So I saw X-Men Apocalypse. The third in the... the third in the New Class sub-trilogy of the X-Men films? I mean, man, the X-Men continuity is most convoluted, overly complex, poorly rewritten and reattached, and then they decided to make a movie about this stuff. I kind of make the point from the X-Men really kind of even the comics are all over the place because especially in the 90s and the 80s, that was the big brand for Marvel, which is why they got adapted first. And they're at Fox, which has wants to do MCU type stuff, I think has even talked about doing that stuff for a while. And Fox is Fox. They have a hard time keeping their regular movies in decent continuity with one another, let alone doing the whole cinematic universe thing. If it wasn't for the fact Bryan Singer had really come back and has really taken a lot of control, and Fox is just kind of do whatever you want. You run X-Men. It would probably be even more of a mess. Actually, if that was the case, Days of Future Past wouldn't have been that good, and they would have just chalked First Class up as a fluke. But this movie I enjoyed it. Even though I said I wasn't super excited about this film, that was been the past couple weeks for previously mentioned reasons. But when they announced this, I actually was excited because now I didn't read many X-Men comics. I did used to read Deadpool, which technically counts, and the Deadpool movie is supposedly part of the X-Men continuity. But I was a huge fan of the X-Men animated series, also on Fox growing up. That was one of my favorite fucking shows. It's got that theme. Love that stuff. Growing up, I way preferred X-Men over Batman. One, because X-Men seemed to be more... One, it was more colorful, and two... I liked the themes better. It was a little... It had more politics to it. Even the kids, animated series had more politics to it, and of course I wind up growing up to get a degree in political science and public policy. Should have got more interested in those sciences. Oh well. But my favorite villain from the X-Men universe, and from the series growing from the cartoon especially, was Apocalypse. He always was like the bad mother effer, and he was way over the top. He was fucking Apocalypse. I mean, his name says it all. You are dealing with him. You are dealing with the Apocalypse. He was, and I just kind of loved his whole persona. His just like, in a show that tried to have its villains more complex, he was that like lovely little like, oh, he just flat out, no, I want constant warfare, survival of the fittest, and even in the cartoon, they just hammed that character up. He was over the top, and he was enjoyable as a result of that. And of course, he had like the skills, and he had the plans that normally put him in as a major threat. So I was excited for this, and I was hoping that we would see something. We didn't do any of the time travel stuff, which is kind of good. I understand that. Normally, I believe the big stuff with Apocalypse in the comics, he gets involved with Cable, who's Cyclops' son, and we don't even want to get into that whole mess of continuity. Sorry, I'm having a little drink here. But they normally, as a result of that, have Apocalypse have some sort of time travel element, because he exists way in the past, and they also make it that he like rises again in the future and causes this near apocalyptic war in the far, far future, even past the Days of Future Past season, or whatever, storyline. But you don't want to repeat the same stuff too much. I understand why they didn't do that. And then, frankly, the plot, they didn't need to. I was hoping he would have more of an army, like this would really be like an apocalyptic war. And it's certainly like an apocalyptic situation. But I was hoping he would have some sort of they made it out that there was like a cult, but they really just... They were there for like 5 minutes and mostly got crushed when the ruins, when Apocalypse knocked himself out of the ruins. I was hoping he was going to have like a small army at least of followers, and it would be some sort of massive clash. Just to make it more apocalyptic. But they didn't, and it was still pretty intense. And they actually, that's somewhat tied into a point. They make a point at the very end. And by the way, there are going to be some spoilers in this. This isn't quite a super spoiler, I guess. But stay tuned to this, and I'll give you my overall impression before getting into any more spoilers. But just one of the themes they make at the end is pointing out, the X-Men are strong because they fight together. Apocalypse, despite his insane power he has in this film, is weak because he is only himself. He is by himself. He is isolated. He's one man. One pretty much fitting the definition of ancient god. Man. Now, as I said, I'm going to get into my overall impressions. I enjoyed the film. I recommend you go out and see it. Unless you absolutely, totally despise comic book films, and then again, I don't think you're watching my channel if that's the case. But yeah, that's my recommendation. So from here on out, there might be some spoilers. There be spoilers. Like I said, I don't want to go through a plot. I'm trying to get away from doing plot point upon plot point reviews. Let's go over that. I don't want to, especially in a film that I enjoyed. But I did like some of the stuff they changed with Apocalypse. One, they have it that he can... I guess his original mutant power is he can jump. Well, his power, he's got one of those wonkies, like multiple powers, is that he can amplify any mutant's power. Like, he's like a supercharger for the mutant gene. So, he takes someone like Magneto, who can manipulate metal. He can supercharge him up to where Magneto can like affect the Earth's core and all the small levels of metal within the soil, and can supercharge him up to the point where he can fuck up the entire planet, which is his ultimate plan. Or he can just basically, if he takes Charles Xavier, he can supercharge him up so he has the full power of Cerebro without being in Cerebro. And on top of that, Apocalypse has the power to transfer his consciousness from one body to the other, and it's apparently when he does this, he not only transfers his consciousness, he transfers all of his mutant powers into the new body. So every time he does this, he kind of gains and retains his powers. And this particular body he's in actually has, I guess, is like a proto-Wolverine, Oscar Isaac's body. So he has intense healing powers. Speaking of the Wolverine, he is in this. They did announce he was going to be in it. They even have a bit of it in the trailer. It's really a cameo. He's not really in the movie. Like Days of Future Past, he was a solid part of that movie, obviously, except for the end where he gets flung off. He's of course in the Weapon X base. Which, by the way, when they released him, I'm not sure if they had this, if they were doing this already, or if because of Deadpool, they really let them go loose. But this has got to be one of the most violent PG-13 films, most gory PG-13 films I have ever seen. Like, I am shocked this kind of did not get an R. And I think they must have done some very careful editing with... I'm not sure how they got away with some of the stuff that was in there, because people's heads get cut off, and they don't make them... They must have hired somebody who had somehow twisted the MPAA's wording back on themselves somehow. That's the only thing I can guess is either, well, two things. Either they really have the MPAA by the balls for some reason, or they hired someone that is like really damn good at twisting the MPAA's own stuff against them and going, well, you said if we just cut it in this particular way, and that's what we did really. So you should really give us it, because then you're not being fair because we complied. Type of deal. Because there's a lot of blood. Like I said, multiple people getting heads cutted, decapitated. Magneto kind of has this one scene where he just takes this like little medallion necklace thing and kills a ton of Polish cops by having it, like, basically did what he did with Sebastian Shaw, only much faster. And it's I guess there's not a whole lot of blood, but they use just enough of it. Actually, it's probably why sometimes only using a little blood is more gory than using a ton, because that little bit of blood is somewhat more realistic, actually. And I think a lot of people react to that. So there was that. By the way, there is that scene with the Polish cops. Basically, Magneto's been working in some... So one, Magneto's been hiding since the whole thing with him trying to kill Nixon. And he's like the most wanted man in the world. And so he's hiding out in communist Poland. Probably not the best place to hang out, Magneto. You know, the place that has a secret police force, and does kind of some... I mean, granted, for the Warsaw Pact, it's probably one of the more liberal, if you want to use that term, of the countries at the time. I mean, you're missing solidarity by just a few years, but still... I don't know if you picked that. I mean, I understand you're from the area. I mean, his character is supposed to be German, but I suppose with the way the maps change, he might have been in what is then or now modern day Poland. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he could have gone to, like, I don't know, go Finland or something, man. But anyway, they do this. While he's at work, of course, working at some sort of metal forging plant or something, uses his powers to try to save a worker. And of course, people report him, and he goes out. He realizes he's packing up. He's trying to find his daughter because he got married. He's got a new daughter and a new wife. Can't find him. As it turns out, these Polish cops grabbed his daughter, went out into the woods, so he would come following them, come out looking for his daughter, now away from any sources of metal, and they're out there. He even points out, "Oh, you took your badges off?" The cops took their badges. They didn't bring any guns. They have bows and arrows and wooden clubs. And I'm like, these guys are surprisingly competent. Out of everyone else in this series, like everyone else had in the 2003 when they had Magneto had this battle, the U.S. Army had to develop all this super high-tech plastic weaponry to take him down. And here in I think it's 82 or 83, these Polish cops just like bows and arrows, wood, and wooden clubs. What the fuck are you gonna do, Magneto? We took off all of the metal stuff on our clothes. We can't, and we're in the middle of the woods. We're gonna shoot and beat you down if you do anything, and there's nothing you can do. Like, oh, these guys are like competent. These are really, really competent. And then one of the guys gets nervous because apparently Magneto's daughter has the ultimate little girl power, the power of like being friends with the animals. Gets upset, causes all these birds to fly around, and one of the cops accidentally like lets go on his bow, even though he didn't even pull back that far, shoots into his daughter, through his daughter, into his new wife, killing them. And of course Magneto goes ape shit, takes the little pennant that I mentioned before, and I said killed. So they were acting super competent up to that one cop that's let it go and did an accidental shoot. Even one of the other cops looked over and like, what the fuck did you do? There was that scene. And that also led to another hilarious scene when they finally come to find Magneto. I guess it's implied that, I guess the guy Magneto got his because I'm sure somebody's going to bring it up. How did they know where Magneto was? They did set that up. They do set that up. That since Magneto has this new life, one of the people that what's his face? Apocalypse goes to, gets recruits first, is this kind of mutant identity dealer. Like, he deals out people, he makes up new passports and stuff. That's where Psylocke comes in that she's like the enforcer for this guy. And when he's like, "Oh, you are powerful, you should join my cult, I'll supercharge your abilities," she goes, "Okay." And he goes, "Well, what do you want?" And she kind of goes, the most powerful mutants, basically. So it's implied that since she worked for this identity dealer who's not being super cooperative, this is probably the guy Magneto went to get his new life. So anyone out there that's complaining that, oh, that's a plot hole, no, Psylocke explains how they found him. Speaking of which, I liked Olivia Munn was fine. She didn't have any speaking roles. She was just kind of there. I mean, she's really technically the closest. I mean, you want to talk about all the race switching with the characters. I remember this character from the series. Now, technically, in the comic book, she is like half British, half Japanese. Olivia Munn for Hollywood is probably is really, for Hollywood standards, the closest you're gonna get, in that she is half white. I don't know, I forget which nationality, and I think half Chinese. I think she's half and half. I think, is it that or is it a quarter? I think I know she's mixed, but I think her father is Chinese, whatever. But you get my point. So, she technically is the closest you're going to get to the role with Hollywood, because how many people can you fit who have a name that you could put into that role that are going to fit that category? Well, Cole Bennett could have done it, I suppose. But she does not want to upset her Marvel masters, I suppose. But anyway, she was fine. I'm kind of interested where they're going to go with her, because out of all of Apocalypse's minions who were not straight out killed, well, Angel was straight out killed, but I suppose he's a different Angel than X-Men 3. Which is, okay, I will just buy this at this point, that sometimes, and this is something that would probably inevitably happen, the mutant powers are going to repeat themselves every now and then. When Angel gets killed, Storm and Magneto kind of turn on Apocalypse, because they realize, oh, we're working for the bad guy, aren't we? And Psylocke kind of just runs off somewhere. So I'm assuming she's going to be back in the sequel, probably as another villain. Although I'm trying to remember her character, the character in the comics. I think she kind of like floats between she's an anti-hero. She goes, sometimes she's villainous, sometimes she's not. I think. I'm sure a comic book person will correct me. What else to talk about? There's a lot. Sansa from Game of Thrones. Sophia Turner. That's her name. Her performance, I felt her performance was fine. Her accent, though, definitely was bleeding through a lot. She needs to work on that. And normally I'd complain about doing an American accent. Like, I know what they're doing with the upcoming Doctor Strange. They have Benedict Cumberbatch, and I'm like, why are they making him do an American accent? I can buy somebody living in New York would have an accent. I don't live that far from New York. Believe me. It's very believable that a British doctor would be living and spending most of his time, like, he went to, like, Columbia. Sure, he was... I don't think the Marvel fans are going to be that upset if you change it a little bit that, oh, Doctor Strange was born in England, had maybe a childhood in England, but then he moved to New York later in life, or, like, he decided to go to Columbia or Princeton, and therefore he just, stayed and... Does Columbia have a medical school? Fine, let's go with Princeton. Went to Princeton Medical and decided to stay in the States and work in New York. I can buy that. You don't have to make him American. Olivia Munn, I get that they were doing, is it Family Jensen? I always forget her name. She's supposed to be that same character, and that previous character was done as American. I think she was supposed to have been born in, like, California in the movie trilogy here, or in the movie continuity, so I can understand why they've said you got to do an American accent, because you're filling this character who's already established as being American. Fine, I can live with that. But I do like, she's kind of the one that really kills Apocalypse, and they make her go full Dark Phoenix to do that, which is kind of insane if you know the continuity. Like, that's what it took to actually kill fucking Apocalypse, because in the comics, Dark Phoenix is uber powerful, one of the most powerful things in the universe, behind, all the other things that are also the most powerful things in the universe. Marvel has a lot of things that are the most powerful things in the universe. But, I mean, out of the X-Men, she is probably the most powerful mutant. And that's what eventually it took to take down Apocalypse in this movie, and that's what you need, because Apocalypse in this film is uber competent. Like, midway through the film, when he finally, psychically connects with Xavier, he kind of almost overrides Xavier's mind. He's like, oh, I can connect with every human on the planet. And within a few seconds, he's like, I'm going to connect my mind to every person that controls what are these? There's these things called nuclear weapons? I'm going to connect my mind to every person that controls those nuclear weapons and launch them. And he does this within just a few seconds as soon as he realizes he could do this. Doesn't develop any of these crazy long plans, long speeches. He's just like, ooh, nukes, launch them, boom. And this, of course, leads to a scene where they want to destroy and basically Xavier gets knocked out and Havoc kind of has to kill himself. Well, no, they basically fuck up Cerebro. and all that. And I'll get back to that in just a second. But it goes to show, yeah, these are kind of, like I said before with the cops. Characters are written competently. Like, the other people are competent in this film, and that makes everything more dangerous. When you have someone that just is like, oh, I can launch nukes, and they just halfway through the film in this one is the end scenario for pretty much most other movies. Like, they stop the nukes. They stop them like right before they're about to come back down to Earth. They're all stuck up in space. But it definitely showed, okay, this is not your typical scenario setup. I guess with the there's a scene afterwards where Apocalypse goes to his plan B, but I got the impression from that it was like on the same day. So he really didn't waste any fucking time. Like, he pretty much was very goal-oriented. I'm gonna wipe out the planet. How do I do this? Okay, nukes, that didn't work, but I only thought of that plan up on the fly, and we got pretty damn close. Plan B, Magneto, fuck up the Earth's core, and you're gonna destroy every major city. But first, I want to build a giant pyramid in the middle of Cairo. Probably killed half the population of Cairo, which, considering that's one of the most populous cities... Oh, technically, this is, like, devastating. This is probably... More people probably died, technically, in this movie than in World War II. Because, like, a lot of major cities kind of get messed up. They show, like, New York didn't get completely destroyed, but they show at least a few buildings getting knocked down when Magneto's doing this. And like I said, half of Cairo, which I think even in the 80s had probably a good 10 million people in it, just get wiped out. And I guess Apocalypse, among his powers, is he can just control any matter he wants, basically. And so, ripped all the building materials down to, their core elements and reformed this giant pyramid. But to go back, there is an amazing scene here with Quicksilver. Normally, you have a great scene in a movie, and then they're going to do basically the same one, and you're like, ugh, this ruins it. You went bigger, more over the top with the scene, and you ruined it. You should have just left it alone. And that's how 99% of films that do that, that's what happens. Except for this movie. They have a Quicksilver scene that basically tries to recreate that Pentagon breakout scene from the first one in the kitchen, ups the ante, puts more ridiculous stuff in it, and succeeds completely. I think helped a great deal because Sweet Dreams is playing throughout this entire sequence, and it is fucking amazing. Where literally, when the mansion is blowing up because Cyclops shot at Apocalypse teleported away along with Professor X, so it goes through where Apocalypse was into a hangar bay that happened to have an SR-71, detonating it and blowing up the entire mansion. They're just lucky Quicksilver just happened to show up at that time, is listening to Sweet Dreams, is like, oh, this place is blowing up, I guess I have to save everyone, and just gets everyone out just in time in a hilarious fashion. So that scene alone probably makes it worth it. That and a lot of 80s references, but done not like, oh look, Knight Rider's on television. Isn't this show amazing? No, it's just on in the background because Quicksilver's trying to hide that he's watching the news about. They do go yes, Magneto is his father. He doesn't actually tell Magneto that. He comes very close, but he decides not to. But lots of little that. Somebody's drinking Tab in the scene I just mentioned with the Quicksilver, and he's saving everybody. Okay, you had to put your effort. And they, go... There's also a funny scene where basically the kids steal one of Professor X's car, go out to the mall, see Return of the Jedi, and are leaving it and are reviewing the film, and they basically all agree that, well, whenever you do the third film, it's going to be horrible. which is obviously referencing X3. I like it that now even the X-Men series has directly stated that X-Men 3 is horrible. And has pretty much, with Deadpool, has also disavowed the Wolverine, or not the Wolverine, that's the good one, X-Men Origins Wolverine, that little short period that almost killed the franchise. Alright, well that is it for me tonight. We've gone on for about a half hour. I am tired. I am going to go to sleep. I'm going to hopefully start to cut this, and it'll be uploaded tomorrow. I still have the audio recording of The Nice Guys, so I might upload that at some point. Like I said, it depends. I got a 3-day weekend coming up, but I know I'm going to just to get ahead of myself, I'm going to be doing actual work this weekend. But on the plus side, I'll be doing it here at home, and I'll be doing it in my underwear, which is always a plus. So, signing off for now. Do all the like, subscribe stuff for the 2 people that have actually stayed and listened to this whole 31 minutes. Peace out.